Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tawheedosunnat.com.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah alladhi hada wassalatu wassalamu ala ibadihi alladhina istafa. خصوصا على سيد الرسل وخاتم الأنبياء وعلى آله وأصحابه الذين اجتبى. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات سيجعل لهم الرحمن ودا فإنما يسرناه بلسانك لتبشر به المتقين وتنذر به قوما لدا وكم أهلكنا قبلهم من قرن هل تحس منهم من أحد أو تسمع لهم ركزا صدق الله العظيم. In the previous session we were talking about Imam Shafi rahimahullah, the Imam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed with so much barakah in his time that in a very short time he was able to have achievements that normally, if we would try to gather his work, the work that Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah did, and according to our understanding, if we start calculating the number of years it would require to have that type of work done, to achieve these type of things that Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah have achieved in his life, there is no way that we can ever come with that conclusion that one person would ever be able to do it throughout his life. We would need a large group of people, large group of very organized, devoted people who would have no other responsibilities, nothing else to do in their lives, and funds, then helpers, recorders, computers, with so many things that would be needed, and then we may not, and for sure if we are truthful with ourselves, we will not succeed to do the work that Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah did it all by himself. There is a lot to learn from the lives of these scholars of Islam. One thing that I just like to point out in the light of the life of Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah is to understand the barakah of the time and understand the real source of the work that we are performing and the achievements that we are looking forward to have. What is the real source for it? Most of the time, we look at the lamp, at the light, and according to the size of the light, we would like to decide how much light it should produce. And according to our understanding, when we see a smaller light, we say that it may not produce too much light. But in reality, there are many very small lights, very small bulbs. They can produce much more light than the large bulbs, provided you provide them with the right connection and electricity. If those connections are there, electricity is there, and the small bulb is made with that power, that it can accommodate all of that power and produce all of that light, for sure is going to do better work than some of the bigger lights. People who did not have too many years in their lives to do a lot, but still we find that they have done much more than our organizations all together can do, with hundreds of people involved in them, with hundreds of thousands of dollars, and sometimes, if you look at the expenditures of the organizations, maybe millions of dollars. At the end, the achievements are nothing close to what single-handed these scholars of Islam have performed and achieved. Again, the reason is their connection, the electricity that was coming from the back, the power that was coming and they are getting, and they made themselves available and capable of getting all of that power. They won't burn down by having that power. They made themselves capable of having and controlling all of that power, and then accordingly, as the power kept on coming, and stronger, the power is getting stronger, they are producing more and more light. They are never burning out. This is what we see in the life of these great muhaddithin, fuqaha, mufassirin, and these scholars of Islam. Of course, as we know that in these short times that we have, we can't spend too much time going into each and every detail of the life of these scholars of Islam, but just having some glimpse and some understanding of how they perform the work for us to get these guidelines and know who are our ancestors and who are these great scholars of Islam, how they connected themselves to these great powers and were able to produce whatever they had produced, such a light that up to this day people are getting hidayah and guidance from the light that they have put on for the world. The largest followers in the history after Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah are the followers of Imam Shafi rahimahullah. When we look at the history of Islam, from the time of these A'imma up to this day, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah had the largest follower. Number 2 was Imam Shafi rahimahullah. And then if you look at number 3 from our history, it would be Imam Malik rahimahullah, and then Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahimahullah. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said in the hadith, لَا يَهْدِيَ اللَّهُ بِكَ رَجُلًا خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنْ حُمْرِ النَّعَمِ. If Allah would guide only one person through you, it's better than having red camels, which means the best ride that was available in those days. And subhanallah, how many hundreds of thousands of people got the guidance from the knowledge that these A'imma of Islam have left for us. Imam Shafi rahimahullah, as we talked about him, was raised as an orphan. Then his mother took him to Makkah Mukarramah, where he learned the hadith and the tafsir and other Islamic sciences from the scholars of Makkah Mukarramah. Then he started at the age of 13, he started giving the dars and the lessons of hadith by the Kaaba. At the age of 16, Imam Shafi rahimahullah went to Medina Munawwara to learn from Imam Malik rahimahullah. So Imam Malik is the teacher of Imam Shafi rahimahullah. And subhanallah, there is a very close connection between all 4 A'imma that many times we don't realize. People try to pose these A'imma as if they were against each other, which is a totally wrong concept and misleading. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahimahullah was the student of Imam Shafi. Imam Shafi rahimahullah was the student of Imam Malik rahimahullah. And Imam Malik rahimahullah was the student of Imam Muhammad ibn al-Hasan. At the same time, Imam Shafi was also the student of Muhammad ibn al-Hasan, who was one of the students of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. There is close connection between these A'imma. And they had so much respect for each other that Imam Shafi rahimahullah, when he went to Baghdad and he went to the grave of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, Imam Shafi rahimahullah's opinion is, in Salah you raise your hand before you go to ruku' and at the time of going to sajda. You raise your hand at the time of saying the takbir. Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah's opinion is, no, you don't raise your hand at those times, you only raise your hand at the beginning of the Salah. When Imam Shafi rahimahullah went to the grave of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, and there is a masjid also over there, he performed the Salah in the masjid without raising the hands during the Salah. So his students that were with him were surprised and asked him, did you change your opinion? He said, no, I did not change my opinion. As a respect to Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, although he is buried over here, that I'm very close to him, I won't follow my opinion and go against his opinion at this time. I'm following his opinion when I'm here around him. Look at the respect these people had for each other. And unfortunately, the way people are trying to make us look at them as they were just totally against each other and they didn't like each other. No, there is difference of opinion with full respect to each other, understanding how Islam teaches us to differ in opinions also. Islam teaches us the difference of opinions also, and how to respect each other in spite of having differences with each other. Of course, it would be in the areas where there is room for difference of opinion, not in aqa'id and beliefs. Anyway, Imam Shafi rahimahullah, at the age of 16, he went to Medina Munawwara because he wanted to learn from Imam Malik rahimahullah. When he arrived, but before leaving Medina, his fear was Imam Malik rahimahullah has great people, great scholars, elderly people, knowledgeable scholars of Islam who are his students. Where would I find a room to be in his gathering? And who would allow me to be in the gathering of Imam Malik? So he got a letter from the governor of Makkah Mukarramah. Letter of recommendation to Imam Malik and to the governor of Medina. Imam Shafi, with these two letters, he went to Medina and straight to the governor of Medina Munawwara, and he showed him these two letters. The governor of Medina said to Imam Shafi that my recommendation is you just go to Imam Malik by yourself without any letters of recommendation. He said, no, because I don't think I will be allowed in that gathering, in those classes. I'm not that great, I'm young, and there are great people sitting over there, great scholars of Islam from all around the world. They come and they sit in the gathering of Imam Malik rahimahullah. So where I'm going to find my position over there? So he went with him. They knocked at the door. Someone opened the door and asked who was at the door. And he told him that this is the governor of Medina. Subhanallah. A person like us would run to the door. Oh, the governor is at my door. And the person comes back to saying that Imam Malik is saying that if you have a question, write it down. I will give you the answer in writing. And if you need to learn about something, then you know the days of my classes and the timings, come to my class. So he sent a message back that, no, I have a letter from the governor of Makkah, something very important I need to talk to you about. Imam Malik rahimahullah came out. And he took them in the house. The governor of Medina handed him the letter from the governor of Makkah Mukarramah, the letter of recommendation for Imam Shafi. Imam Malik rahimahullah took the letter and he started reading it. As he got to the point where the governor of Makkah is writing, that I recommend that you please teach this man hadith and teach him the rules of the Sharia of Islam and teach him the Sunnah. He threw the letter back to him. He said, do you think I'm selling hadith? Do you think I'm selling the knowledge of deen? That now the governors will tell me who to teach? And you people will bring those governors to force me to teach people like you? I have nothing for you people. There is no room for you in my class. Shafi says, when I saw the situation, now I realize that really coming without these letters would have been better for me. I thought letter from these big people would make a big difference, but here I see that it's going the other way around. And when he said these words, the governor of Medina started shaking. He couldn't say a single word. Imam Shafi said, now I knew that if I lose this opportunity, that's it. I won't be able to come back. So quickly, I said to Imam Malik, no, please. The only reason I got these letters of recommendation because I'm orphan and I love to learn hadith and I have no one else to stand for me. So I thought these governors, if they would write a letter of recommendations, I would be able to attend the class. And I really love to learn, and we are very poor people. We have my father died at the young age when he says when Imam Malik heard these things, he said, this is the situation. Now the situation is different. Okay, come to me tomorrow. Shafi says, next day I went, and then he started getting so close to Imam Malik, rahimahullah, that he says finally Imam Malik, rahimahullah, used to tell the other scholars in the gathering that the only person that I expect to do a great work out of my gathering and my students will be this young man, Muhammad bin Idris al-Shafi, rahimahullah. These people used to read people's faces. He says the second day I went to him, he said to me, that Muhammad, his name was Muhammad bin Idris, Imam Shafi's name. Muhammad, let me tell you this. I see a lot of nur on your face. Don't lose it by sinning. Don't lose this nur that I see on your face by disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has put it in you, preserve it, protect it. If you won't, it will go away. I see this nur, and if it will continue to be the way it is, I tell you, one day Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take a lot of work of deen from you. SubhanAllah. This is the second day that he meets this young man who's only 16 years old. If a jeweler knows what type of gold is good, just look at the pearls and they tell us that this is good and this is not. These were the people who used to look at people and be able to tell that this person has that nur on his face. By looking at these faces, they would tell. Imam Shafi rahimahullah spent many years around Imam Malik rahimahullah, learning the hadith, learning the meanings of hadith, and learning the way of deriving the rules from the hadith from Imam Malik rahimahullah. Then he went to Yemen and spent some years in Yemen. Then he came back to Iraq, spent some time in Iraq, then in Makkah Mukarramah, and finally he's stationed in Egypt. And he spent the rest of his life in Egypt. And during his stay in Egypt, he wrote many books about the rules of the Sharia. One of them, very famous and well-known book in the fiqh of Shafi, which is called Darul-Uloom, is in thousands of pages. In thousands of pages. One of the beautiful book, excellent book to learn how to derive the ruling from in the light of Quran and Hadith. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed Imam knowledge with such a deep understanding that he used to drive the rulings in such a way that others, when they would hear about it, normally they would think that Imam Shafi is going against the Hadith. And this was something very special and unique with all of these A'imma, 4 Imams. Their understanding of Hadith and ayahs of the Quran was so deep that a normal, not normal person, a normal scholar of Islam of that time, of not today, a normal scholar of Islam of that time, a muhaddiseen of that time, like Imam Bukhari, Tirmidhi, Imam Muslim, those were the normal scholars of those days. People of that caliber and of those categories, of those levels, when they would look at the rulings driven by these imams, if they would not go and ask them about the proofs, they were never able to figure out where he's getting it from. And normally they would think he's going against the hadith. Once Imam Shafi rahimahullah, as he's sitting in the gathering of Imam Malik rahimahullah, a person came and asked Imam Malik a question of fiqh. He said, I had a puppet that sings with beautiful voices. I sold it to a man who came to me after a few days and said that your puppet is always quiet. You told me that I paid all the price for it because you told me that it sings all the time. But it never sings anything, it just stays quiet. So he says, I got into argument with this man. And I said, no, it always keeps on singing. And he said, no, it's always quiet. So I said, Wallah, I swear by God, and I'm so sure about it that my wife would be divorced if it ever stays quiet. After saying these words of emotions, right away I said to myself, that my oath is my wife is divorced if my puppet ever stays quiet. And my puppet, of course, for sure goes to sleep. At the time when it eats, stays quiet. So he went to Imam Malik. What should I do now? He says, of course, for sure your wife is divorced. Imam Shafi rahimahullah, as a respect, he's a student, as a respect, he didn't say anything. When the man left the gathering, he went after him and said, excuse me, don't worry about it. Your wife is not divorced. Come back and ask him to think more about it. So he came back. And he said, is there any way that you can think more about it and find a way for me? He said, I can't think of anything else. He said, this young man sitting over here, he told me, he just informed me that my wife was not divorced. Imam Malik got very upset. He looked at Imam Shafi and said, did you say this? He said, yes, I said it because I have driven this rule from a hadith. I have a proof for it. Then from a hadith? What hadith is that? He said the hadith. When a woman came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and asked him his opinion that should she marry a person with the name Abu Jahm? Abu Jahm proposed to her and she wanted to ask Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's opinion. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's response was, Amma Abu Jahm, فَإِنَّهُ لَا يَضَعُ عَصَاهُ عَنْ عَاتِقِهِ. This Abu Jahm, I don't recommend him. The reason is, he is always carrying a stick on his shoulder. Which means, anytime he gets upset, you are in danger. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, he never puts the stick off his shoulder. These are the wordings. لَا يَضَعُ عَصَاهُ عَنْ عَاتِقِهِ. He never puts the stick off his shoulder. Imam Shafi says, because we know now, Abu Jahm used to sleep too. At that time, the stick won't be on his shoulder. When he sits down, the stick won't be on his shoulder. It will be normally when he's walking out. This is what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam meant. And this is what this man meant, that normally my bird keeps on singing, but not, of course, when it's sleeping and when it's eating. In normal situation, most of the time, it keeps on singing. Then Imam Malik heard him and said, sure. Yes. It's proven from this hadith, and this is a rule that we can derive from a hadith, from this hadith, that is something a person is doing it most of the time the person is seeing doing something, then you can say he always does this. A person who blinks his eyes occasionally, and he has that habit, every some minutes he keeps on blinking his eyes. We tell him, you always blink. You always keep on blinking your eyes, although a normal person does also. But he's doing it more often than anyone else. And he's, of course, we tell him you always do it, doesn't mean every second he's doing it. It may be every few minutes he's doing it. A person who have, people who have these type of habits, you look at what they do at the majority of the time, most of the time, how they are seen. SubhanAllah. See when they're driving the rules from. Look at the deep understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed these people with. Once looking at a man, Humaydi, and I'm not sure if anyone can recall who is Imam Humaydi rahimahullah. He is the teacher, if you study Sahih al-Bukhari with the chain of narrators, he is the teacher of Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, the student of Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah. Look at the connection. Imam Humaydi rahimahullah says, once we were walking. On our way, I saw a man and I asked Imam Shafi'i, what do you think is the occupation of this man? Just by seeing a man that none of them knew who that man was, he says, I asked him, what do you think is the occupation of this man? So he says, Imam Shafi said to me, for some reason when I look at this man, it's a little confusing. Either he's a carpenter or he's a tailor. Imam Humaydi says, I went and asked the man, what's your profession? He says, I was a carpenter and these days I'm working as a tailor. A man comes to the masjid and he started looking around. Imam Humaydi says that Imam Shafi said to me, go and tell him that your slave who has run away from you is not in this masjid, is in the prison. He said, I was so surprised. I asked him, do you know the man? No, I don't know the man. Who told you that his slave has run away from him? He said, you just go and tell him. He said, I went and told the man. So he came with me to Imam Shafi. He says, now you know, of course, where he is and how he ended up being in prison. He said, I've never seen your slave. I have never seen you. I have never seen your slave. I don't know who you are. Then how are you able to see that I lost my slave who have run away from me, and then you are able to tell me that he's in prison? He said, don't worry about it. First thing, go and see if he's there. He went over there to find that truly what Imam Shafi said was exactly the same way. He was in the prison. He came back and said, please, you have to tell me, how did you know about it? This was a science. This was understanding. This was the knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed these people with. How? Where did they get it from? And how was he able to figure it out that appropriately and so perfectly? Inshallah, we will talk about it in our next session. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله.